Hi guys, welcome back. Happy Monday. I hope you had a good weekend. How'd you guys do on the test? Yeah, I'm sure you guys did really well on it. All right, so we have finished chapter 3. We finished talking about George Washington's presidency and John Adams' presidency. Now we're going into chapter 4. And chapter 4 is entitled Jefferson and Moving West. So what do we remember about who Jefferson is? What was Thomas Jefferson? Yes, he was one of our founding fathers, and he also helped write the Declaration of Independence. So that's a quick recap of what we've learned about Thomas Jefferson so far. Now, moving west, what do you think that's going to be talking about? Do you think it's maybe we are going to be expanding America toward the west? I don't know. We'll have to keep reading and finding out how this chapter goes. Okay, so at this point in time in history, there are a lot of things changing in America. There's a lot of new things happening. Remember, we're just a brand new country right now. We're just starting. There's lots of things that are happening. And one of the things that is happening right now is the election of 1800. Okay, so that's kind of going to be what we're focusing a lot on today, is the election of 1800. All right. So now, during the election of 1800, there are two people that are running for election. Now, these two people had two very different points of view about how the country should run. They both wanted the country to be successful and to grow, but they had different ways about how they were going to do that. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So let's kind of get into who they were. All right, so we have first John Adams here. All right, remember who John Adams is? He's the president right now. Remember, he became the second president, and he had his first term, which meant he was 4 years. So now he is going for his second term. But after each term, you have to have another election. So he's up for re-election for his second term of presidency. Now, so that's our first one. Our second one is Thomas Jefferson. Do we remember him? Yes, he ran against John Adams in the last election to see who was going to be the second president. John Adams won. Well, now they're going up against each other again. Now, this particular election was very hard because these two candidates, they were not very nice to each other. They attacked each other, not physically, but with their words. Remember how we talked about what campaigning is? When you campaign and you tell people why you should be president and how you would make things better? Well, that's what they were doing. But while they were campaigning, they were saying some pretty nasty things about each other. It wasn't a very happy campaign during this election. All right, so at this time also, there were two major political parties that were forming. Okay, and they had very different ideas and views on how the country should run. Now, they both wanted the country to be successful. They both wanted to do what they thought was best for the country. But what they thought was best for the country, that's where their views were different. And we're going to focus a little bit in on that too today. All right, so we're going to go through each of the parties and we're going to find out what they thought about this election and what their views are. So our two political parties are the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. All right, so that's what we're going to be looking at now. So let's start with the Federalists, okay? John Adams was a Federalist. All right, now some of the things that the Federalists believed were that they liked democracy, but they didn't want too much of it. So what is democracy? Well, over here, it's one of our vocab words. Democracy is rule by the people. So it means that the people get to make decisions about how the government is run. Well, the Federalists liked the idea of the people having an idea of making choices about how the government and how the country is going to run, but they didn't think that the people should get to make all of the decisions, only a few decisions. They thought that the government should make more decisions than the people did. So that's why they liked democracy, but they didn't want too much democracy. They didn't want too many choices that the people got to make for themselves. Another thing was they believed that the government should build the roads and the bridges and the canals. They wanted the government to be in charge of that. Another thing that the Federalists wanted were they supported both farmers and traders. Okay, they didn't just support the farmers or just the traders, they supported both of them. But they did think that a strong government or a strong nation needed to have very strong banks, which meant they needed to have strong trading also. So, because they had a lot of debts that they had to pay off, especially from the past wars that they had been involved in, that the Federalists believed that you needed to have a strong banking country and a strong trading country, which meant a lot of money to help pay off your debts. Another view and opinion that they had was that government should have good character. Okay, they think that people in government should have good character, good morals, and good virtue to be able to run a country. Oh, and along with that one, they also wanted religion to be in government. They felt that the leaders of our country needed to be religious people that had religious morals, which would lead to the good character and the good morals that they thought that the government leaders should have. So those are some of the opinions and ideas of the Federalists. So now let's look at the Democratic Republican ideas, which was the political party that Thomas Jefferson was a part of. So we have our Democratic Republican Party. One of the things that they believed in is they wanted more democracy. Remember what that democracy was? Rule by the people. So the Democratic Republicans and Thomas Jefferson wanted the people to make more choices about the government and how the country ran than the government did. So they wanted the people to have more choices in that. One thing that they supported the farmers much more so than the traders or the bankers, because they believed that the backbone of our country were the farmers, because they were growing all of our food and all of the things that we needed. So they supported the farmers above all the other working people. They also did not like traders because, and when I mean traders, what I mean is people who traded goods. They were part of the imports and the exports. They helped trade things with other countries and with other, maybe with the Native Americans and things that were all around. They did trading, not traders that were, not loyal to somebody. These are traders who did that as a business, traded items with other countries and other people. And the Democratic Republicans did not like them so much because they always had to borrow money from somebody. When you borrow money from somebody, you are dependent on them. It means you can't support yourself. You can't be self-sufficient. You don't make everything that you need like the farmers do. The farmers didn't have to depend on anybody because they did everything for themselves. Well, traders and the bankers had to borrow money from other people, so they depended on other people. So the Democratic Republican political party didn't like that idea with the money. They also wanted more states' rights. They wanted the states to be able to make more decisions than the national government. So they thought the states should make some of their own decisions without the national government telling them what to do. So that was part of what the Democratic Republican Party wanted. And then finally, they did not think that religion was important in government. Not that they didn't think religion was important, but they didn't think that they needed to have religion in government. They didn't think that their leaders needed to be religious people or have religious morals. That they thought was not a factor. So these are some of the views and opinions that the Democratic Republicans had, and these are some that the Federals have. And you can see there's a lot of differences in these, but they still had some things in common. One being that they wanted the best for the country. They, even though they had different ways about getting it, they still wanted the country to grow and succeed and be around for a long time. So they had hope for the future of our country. All right. So now we had talked about how John Adams was the president at this time during this election. Now during his first 4 years as president, he had a rough time because he was making decisions that he thought were best for the country that his party didn't think was the best. So he was making decisions based on the best of the country, not his party. And there were people who didn't agree with that. In fact, it affected the election a lot. So that even if they did agree with some of these ideas, they still didn't want John Adams as president again. So Who became our third president? Thomas Jefferson did. This time, in this election, Thomas Jefferson won the presidency, and he now became the third president of the United States. Now, this was the first time that a new political party was going to be the presidency. Now, remember, John Adams was a Federalist, and not that George Washington believed in political parties, but these were some of the ideas. He still had these same ideas about how to run a country. So in a way, you can consider George Washington like a Federalist because he kind of followed these ideas. He just didn't call himself a Federalist. So our country has now had two Federalist ideas as presidency, George Washington and John Adams. So now, and that's been, let's see, George Washington was there for 2 terms, which is 8 years, and John Adams was there for 1 year, which is 4 years. So how many years total has a Federalist ideas been in power? For 12 years. That's right, 12 years. So for the first 12 years of our government, it has been with the Federalist ideas. And now we have a new ideas coming in. A new political party is starting to be the president now. This is the first time this has ever happened in our country. Now, when this kind of thing happens in other countries, there's usually a huge deal about it. And there's all kinds of problems and issues and upheaval. And there's just all kinds of arguments and fighting and things like that when a different party tries to take power. But in our country, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans, set a precedent that when the new political party took over as presidency, there were no problems. There was no issues. The transition from Federalist to Democratic Republican was smooth. Nobody fought about it. Nobody argued about it. Once the election was over, Thomas Jefferson won. Everybody accepted it, and they were fine, and they let the Democratic Republican come into the presidency without fighting them. That was the first time that had happened in our country. It was the first time we ever switched. So George Washington didn't set all of the precedents for our future presidents. The Federalists and the Democratic Republican also set a precedent. That precedent was to transition smoothly from one political party to the next. So that's something that they had in common also. And that was a big deal because that didn't happen in most other countries. But we were able to do that, and we continue to do our best to keep doing that every time we have an election. Okay, so some of the big ideas that we have come from this section is, the first one is there were 2 major political parties during the 1800 election. They were the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans, and they had different views, just like we have different views today in our political parties. The second thing that we learned about was that Thomas Jefferson became the third president of the United States. And then the last thing that we talked about as our big idea is that the precedent was set for a peaceful transition to a new political party as president. We had a very peaceful transition from the Federalists to the Democratic Republicans. Pretty cool. So in this chapter, for the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about the way our country has grown and the way it has changed because of Thomas Jefferson and all of the things that he did and how he helped our country succeed even more. All right? Okay, so now I want to talk to you guys about our assignment for today. All right. Oh, let me turn this light off again. There we go. Okay. So we have here, can you see it? Back up a little bit. There we go. We have a Venn diagram, okay? You guys know what a Venn diagram is. The outside circles here represent the differences, the contrast. The inside circle represents the things that are in common, the things that are the same, all right? So the first one over here, let's go on this side first, is going to be Thomas Jefferson and the Democratic Republican. This circle is going to be John Adams and the Federalists. So up here, you have 8 different statements. You are going to decide which statement goes where. Does it go with Thomas Jefferson and the Democratic Republicans? Does it go with John Adams and the Federalists? Or does it go in the middle because they both felt the same way? So the first one up here is, let's see if I can, there we go. had hope for America's future? All right. Was that Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, or was that both? Okay. Wanted more democracy. Was that the Democratic Party, the Federalist Party, or was that both? Wanted religion in government. Which one wanted that, or was it both? Supported farmers. Where on the Venn diagram does that one go? Supported farmers and traders. Well, if one supported farmers, then maybe the other one supported farmers and traders, but which was which? Set a peaceful precedent in the election of 1800. Was that the Democratic Republican? Was it the Federalist, or was it both? Okay. Religion not important in government. Who was that? Afraid of too much democracy. Which group was that? Or did they both share that idea? And wanted religion in the government. Where on our Venn diagram does that go? Okay? All right, so you don't have to print that out. You can just draw your Venn diagram on your papers and then fill it in and then send it to your teachers. All right, guys? I miss you guys so much. I cannot believe we're like so close to the end of the school year. It has been a crazy year, but I miss you guys very much, and I can't wait to see you again. I hope you're doing well, and if you guys need anything, please email us and just let us know. All right? Okay, bye. Bye.